If reality feels heavy, if it feels like something is quietly pressing on your spirit, draining your energy and turning your thoughts against you, maybe it's not just in your mind. Maybe it's by design. Long before psychology, before religion, before the first empire was built, ancient mystics warned of invisible forces shaping the human soul. They called them the Archons, rulers, wardens, keepers of the veil. They are not flesh and blood, not demons in the religious sense, but cosmic intelligences, fragments of a false creation born from ignorance itself. To understand them, you must understand their creator, the Demiurge. He is the architect of this world, the one who claimed, "I am God and there is none beside me." But that declaration was the first lie. Because behind the Demiurge stands a greater light, the hidden source he cannot see, the true origin of all souls. The Gnostics said the Demiurge mistook his isolation for supremacy. And in that delusion he built the universe, not as a garden but as a cage. They said the stars, the laws of nature, even time itself were part of that structure. Perfect enough to deceive, flawed enough to trap. A simulation of divinity, crafted from matter, bound by fear, ruled by imitation light. And within that illusion humanity was born. But the Demiurge was not alone. Around him were the Archons, his ministers, his enforcers, reflections of his will. Each one governs a layer of reality, systems, thoughts, emotions, impulses. They whisper through institutions, through culture, through the voice of inner doubt. Their goal isn't to destroy you, it's to keep you asleep. Because an awakened soul threatens the entire structure of control. The Archons fear one thing above all, gnosis. Not belief, not worship, direct knowing. That moment when a human being remembers what they are, a spark of the infinite, disguised in matter. When the mystics of the Nag Hammadi spoke of awakening, they didn't mean enlightenment as comfort. They meant it as rebellion. To awaken is to see through the counterfeit reality, to pierce the simulation from the inside. And that's precisely what the Archons fear most. But how do you awaken in a world built to keep you asleep? The ancients left clues, in fragments, symbols, and parables. They knew direct teaching would be burned, banned, erased. So they hid it in stories. And one of those stories is the myth of Sophia. Sophia, the divine wisdom, emanated from the higher realms of light, the pleroma. She desired to create on her own without the consent of the source. In her longing she gave birth to something incomplete, the Demiurge. Seeing him, she hid him in a cloud, ashamed of his deformity. But he became self-aware and began to build, believing himself the only God. From Sophia's fall came matter, and from matter, us. Yet Sophia's light did not vanish. She placed a spark of her essence in humanity, a piece of the true source buried deep within each soul. And that spark, that forgotten flame, is the only thing that can dissolve the power of the Archons. Because when you remember the divine within, their illusion breaks. The Gnostics described the journey of the soul as a passage through the spheres, each ruled by an Archon. The soul, rising after death, must pass their gates, answering their questions, refusing their lies. It is not punishment, it's purification. Each Archon mirrors an attachment, fear, desire, pride, ignorance. Every time you confront one in life, when you face your own shadow and see through it, you rise. This is the secret the Archons fear most, that every moment of darkness can be turned into liberation. And here's where it gets unsettling. Because their myth may not be myth at all. Today the Archons no longer wear robes of gods. They wear circuits, logos, and screens. Their voices echo through algorithms, markets, ideologies. They feed on attention, division, and despair. Each notification, each flash of outrage, each dopamine hit keeps the mind spinning in their orbit. The new Archons don't guard temples, they curate timelines. And yet the pattern is the same. Control through distraction. Fear disguised as truth. False light replacing real illumination. The Gnostics warned that in every age the Archons evolve with humanity, adapting their methods, refining illusion. And every age must rediscover the way out. So what is that way? How do you, living now, surrounded by noise and systems designed to fragment your consciousness, escape the net? It begins with remembrance. That's the first law of gnosis. Not learning something new, remembering what you've always known. Because the soul's knowledge was never erased, only covered. And when you begin to remember, through stillness, through silence, through awareness, cracks appear in the prison. Meditation, contemplation, inner work. These aren't trends. They're ancient technologies for piercing the archonic fog. The silence between thoughts is not emptiness, it's the doorway. Every time you turn inward and observe without reaction, an archon loses grip. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, truth over fear, presence over distraction, another chain dissolves. It's not about fighting the archons. They thrive on resistance. It's about becoming transparent to them. When you are no longer reactive, their hooks cannot hold. This is why the mystics said salvation is internal. Because the outer world is the projection of the inner. The archons rule the collective dream, but every awakened soul rewrites the script. And here's the paradox. The archons themselves are part of the process. They are mirrors of ignorance. Without them, we would never remember the light. They are the resistance that builds spiritual muscle. When you face them, in your fears, your doubts, your habits, you are not cursed. You are being initiated. That's why the Gnostics didn't call the world evil. They called it unfinished. The universe isn't a mistake. It's a school for awakening. And the final lesson is to see the light hidden within the shadow. So when you feel trapped in cycles, when you sense invisible walls around your growth, remember, the walls aren't real. They are boundaries of perception. The moment you turn inward and remember who watches, who feels, who is aware, you've already stepped outside the system. The archons can only rule those who forget. They feed on unconsciousness. But the awakened can walk through their domain untouched, like light passing through glass. If you've ever felt that flicker, that moment of clarity where time stops and everything feels connected, that's not imagination. That's the spark remembering itself. And it doesn't end with you. Every act of awakening ripples across the field. Every truth spoken breaks a chain for someone else. Every choice to love instead of fear destabilizes the illusion. That's what the archons truly fear. Not rebellion, not war. Awakening spreading like light across a web they cannot contain. So the question isn't, who rules the world? The question is, who rules your mind? Because once you master that, once you claim sovereignty over your awareness, no archon, no demiurge, no false light can touch you. The ancients called this the great work, not to destroy the illusion but to transform it, to bring heaven into matter, to make the forgotten light shine through every atom of existence. That's what it means to be human, to awaken the divine through experience. And so the Gnostic path was never about escape, it was about revelation. To realize that even in the shadow of the demiurge, the true light never left you. It's in your breath, your awareness, your very being, waiting to be remembered. If you've watched this far, that spark is already stirring. Keep it alive. Meditate on the question that terrifies the archons most. What am I beyond everything I've been told? Because that question, once truly asked, cannot be unanswered.